Well, what's up, everybody? It's Peter, and I'm so glad to be here with you guys today as we kick off summer. Who's ready for summer, right? Here at Hope City, we want you to kick off your summer right, and so we're gathering together, and everybody I know wants to have a great summer, right? I know I do. I'm sure you do. Nobody wants to have a summer that's like this guy, right? Like, nobody wants to go to the boat ramp and end up with a car in the drink, right? I mean, the only thing you can say is he had his hatch open, so it'll drain out fast, right? Or how about this, ladies, let me just give you a heads up. Probably watch this, maybe don't wear that to the beach because you're gonna end up looking like a lawnmower ran you over. Or anybody ever have something like this happen? You set up this idea like we're gonna go camping and it's gonna be fun. And then you wake up and the tent has collapsed on you. Yeah, great job. I'd love to know in the comments right now, what is your worst summer memory? You know, maybe you got stung by a bee. I don't know. Maybe, what's your worst summer memory? See, nobody wants to have a summer like that, right? Summers were great when I was a kid, right? It was just like carefree and you just did whatever you want. But summers take on a little bit of a different angle when you're a parent, doesn't it? Because all of a sudden you gotta buy like, a tractor trailer's worth of snacks for your kids. You've got to plan like an entire, a cruise ship director's worth of events for your kids. You've gotta have summer on lockdown because man, it is crazy. Summer's different now that I'm a dad. See, my wife Tiffany and I, we have 3 kids. We've got my son Noah, he is 15, my daughter Grace is 14, and my daughter Leah is 10. How many of you have kids, all right? Raise your hand, put an emoji in the chat if you've got kids, right? Or how many of you have grandkids? How many of you know a kid? How many of you saw a kid today, right? Maybe you saw one in a picture or who knows. But listen, I'm telling you this, you're in the right spot today. If you have kids, if you've got grandkids, maybe you've got nieces or nephews, or you know a kid or a kid works for you, this message applies to you. In fact, we know that summer is here, everybody. It has arrived. The heat is coming, the humidity's coming, but pay attention to the emotions that you're feeling when I say that summer is here. Because I know that some of you, quite frankly, right now, you're feeling worried. You woke up and you're worried about this summer. You're thinking, what am I gonna do with these kids? Or I'm worried about the fact that it's only 8 weeks long. It's gonna fly by so quickly. It feels crazy short and I want it to be the best summer ever. Some of you are worn out. Right? Like you went through the school year and you're like, I got done with the shoebox projects. I did all the band rehearsals. I did the sports pickups. I did the Ubering, driving kids everywhere. And I am exhausted. Some of you are coming into summer and like, you can't wait. Like Pinterest was made because of you, not for you. It was made because of you, because like you just do everything to the next level. Like you bring summer to the next level. And so I'm telling you this, you're just like, whoo, you're giddy. You can't wait for the opportunities that summer is gonna bring you. But here's the deal. I've got a core conviction that I just can't kick. And it's this, that there is no greater joy or responsibility than influencing the life of a kid. Everyone has influence. If there's breath in your lungs, there is influence in your life. Everyone has influence and everyone influences someone. But there's a problem though. And the problem is this, is that few things are passed off or blown off quicker than influencing the life of a kid. Because why? As parents, we say things like, I'm just exhausted, right? And I don't have time to do that. Like, you just want to phone it in. Grandparents, you say things like, I'm too old. They don't want to listen to me. They've already heard my stories. They don't want to hear it from me. I'm out of touch. Bosses make the mistake of missing out on the opportunity to positively influence the life of a kid because they think it's just not their job. Or someone else will do it, right? Singles, some of you singles say, well, they're not my kids. I couldn't possibly influence them. Let me tell you this, there is no greater joy or responsibility than influencing the life of a kid. And there is so much that hangs in the balance. There is a generation that's standing behind you that is looking around and it's wondering, who's going to influence me? Who will mentor me? Who will pour into me? Who will take time for me? And here's what we know. Summer is an incredible opportunity to invest your life and your time into the lives of your kids, your grandkids, or your sphere of influence. This is a core conviction of my wife, Tiffany, and I. We love our family, but I'll be the first person to tell you that I've made a lot of mistakes as a parent. I've learned the hard way in my parenting, and you might be right there with me. You might be the guy or the mom that's saying, man, I wish I could do it over again. You are not a perfect parent, and you know why I know that? Because there is no such thing as a perfect parent. There is a lot of grace for you and for me as parents. But here's what I know. I know that we want to be better. We want to be the best parents we can, the best aunts we can, the best uncles we can, the best grandparents, the best spiritual aunts, spiritual mothers, spiritual fathers, the best spiritual big brothers or sisters that we possibly can be. And in fact, today, I want to help us, I want to help you have the best summer ever. And I don't want you to miss it. Hey guys, I want you to turn in your Bibles to 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 12 through 29, because there is a guy in the Bible who absolutely missed opportunity after opportunity with his kids. This guy is named Eli. Eli was a priest at Shiloh, and he served there for 40 years. So for 40 years, this guy served in the temple courts, and Eli had two sons. He had a son by the name of Hophni and a son by the name of Phinehas. So if you're getting kids or having kids or thinking about having kids, you might just want to store that name away, Hophni and Phinehas. Think about that for later, right? So these two guys, Hophni and Phinehas, followed in their dad's footsteps. They were priests as well. Now, I wish I could tell you that Eli was a quality example of what it meant to be a godly parent. But unfortunately, as we're going to see here in a second, Eli missed the opportunity. He missed the influence. Look with me at how the Bible describes Eli's sons. It says, Eli's sons were wicked men, for they had no regard for the Lord. All right, so here's what happened. The sons, they were priests in the temple, and what they would do is they would force people to give them their meat offering because they didn't want it the way that God had determined it. See, the way that it was is you would bring an offering to the temple. You'd bring some meat or something as a way of expressing your worship to God. They'd put that meat in a pot. They would boil it and kind of get the fat out of it. And then what would happen is it was permissible for the priest to stick a 3-pronged fork in there and to pull out whatever bit of meat came with it. But Eli's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, they didn't like that. They wanted their meat thrown on a reverse sear, man. They wanted like a nice Parmesan crust on that steak. And so they demanded that offering from people. They threw it on a grill. They forced people to give them their offering. Here's what happened. Verse 17, it says, the sin of the young men was very great in the Lord's sight, for they were treating the Lord's offering with contempt. These guys were morally corrupt. But here's the deal. You remember what they did, right? They were priests. They were professional priests, just like their daddy. They were unhappy with the system that God used to provide for them. And what they did was they ended up messing with the money. They ended up getting involved in things that they never should have been, and they treated the Lord's offering with contempt. See, we can tell something right off the bat here about Eli. He raised two boys, Hophni and Phinehas, but he really just raised professional priests. Outwardly, they looked the part. They performed their duties. They held the office, but their heart was nowhere near it. They were unfamiliar with God. See, Eli may have set out early on in his life. He may have been like, babe, man, we're going to have two boys, and these boys are going to be just like their daddy. They're going to be priests in the house of Shiloh. It's going to be awesome. They're going to follow in my footsteps. And it happened. He raised these boys to do exactly that. And as a priest himself, Eli was incapable of influencing his sons to follow God. Parents, can I encourage you with something this morning? If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Parent for purpose. Okay? Not parent on purpose because, hey, sometimes it's just a surprise, right? Like sometimes those kids just show up and you're like, whoa, but parent for purpose. Don't forget, if you've got breath in your lungs, you've got influence in your life. And there is no greater joy or responsibility than influencing the life of a kid, a student, and a young adult to walk with Jesus. Parents, it's so easy to get hung up on outcomes, right? Like, I want my kids to get good grades. I want my kids to play on the best sports teams. I want my kids to, you name it, right? Eli, I want my kids to be professional priests. Whatever it is that you're thinking of, you can fill in that blank. But those are all outcomes based. See, it's possible to achieve every outcome and fail at what matters most. And this is exactly what Eli did. Real talk, I am no perfect parent. My son Noah was our firstborn and he's now 15, so this feels like eons ago. But my man was into everything at this age. He was a natural explorer, which is code for he was all over the place, right? Like Noah was a spunky kid. He was loud, he was expressive, and he would let you know if he didn't like something, right? Something that bothered him. But here's the deal. His behavior did not fit my expectations on him as a kid. We regularly had conflict because he wasn't who I wanted him to be. I thought that this little boy should be a boy that kind of followed behind me as I led, and as I walked, he would be right behind me. I thought that this little boy would be a little bit quieter and he wouldn't express himself and his big feelings all the time. And I'm telling you, I wanted him here, not so loud, not so expressive, and I tried with everything that I had to shape him into the kid that I preferred him to be. Now, Noah wasn't a perfect kid. But some of what I was trying to discipline was his personality. It's just who he is. And I thank God for my son. Today, I thank God for the personality and the way that God has shaped him and molded him, because you know what? My son Noah is a strong-willed kid. Do you know what that means? Is that he is not going to fall into temptation or peer pressure. You can't convince him to do something that he doesn't want to do. My son is expressive, which means he can share what's on his heart and his mind. He knows how to communicate his feelings, and he's compassionate towards others. That his heart is moved towards other people. My son is a natural explorer, which means that there are things that don't scare him that would scare other people. And I believe that God is going to use that in Noah. I believe that God is going to do something in tremendous ways. And here's the scariest thing. I tried to parent that out of him because I was focused on outcomes. I was focused on an outcome rather than parenting for his purpose. Do you know what messes with my heart? Is that my preferences were actually pushing against God's purposes in his life. Don't do that. Parents, watch out for this, because I'm going to issue you a strict warning right now. A parent that parents for purpose refuses to parent for an outcome or simply a behavior change. Outcomes are good. Behavior change is good, but it's not what's most important. See, if you're going to parent on purpose, then you'll prioritize heart change over behavior change. Because if you can influence and shape a child's heart, their behavior will follow. Parent for purpose. Imagine what God could do in the life of your kids when you work more on God's purpose for their life than what your preference is of their life. Eli missed it. The story goes on. Look at what happens in verse 22. Now Eli was very old, heard about everything his sons were doing to all Israel and how they slept with the women who served at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Like, guys, it gets worse. The boys were not only messing with the people's offerings, they were also sleeping with the women who served on the dream team, right? Whether this was by force or by coercion, we don't really know, but they were a disgrace and people knew about it. They knew about it so much that people were running to Eli to tell him all about it, what his boys were doing. Now remember, Eli was the priest there for 40 years and his boys served underneath of him. So he was responsible for what happened in that house, that temple at Shiloh. So what do you think Eli did? Well, look at verse 23 through 25. It says, so he said to him, boys, why do you do such things, right? I hear from all these people about the wicked deeds of yours. No, my sons, it's not a good report that I hear spreading among the Lord's people. If a man sins against another man, God may mediate for him. But if a man sins against the Lord, who will intercede for him? His sons, however, did not listen to his father's rebuke. Do you see what Eli did? He said, now boys, why did you do that, right? This isn't good, boys. Like basically just like a slap on the hand, right? I wish you didn't do that. Hey, don't you know how bad of an idea this is? Essentially, all he did was speak to them. And the tone of his conversation doesn't sound anything like the conversations I've had with my dad when I was out of step, right? Eli was out of step and he reprimanded when what he should have been doing is restraining them. In fact, can I encourage you with this? Kids will want to have their way. It's natural. That's just what happens. They want to do what kids want to do. But as parents, as grandparents, and as people of influence in the lives of kids, can I encourage you to invest, don't indulge. Investments take time. Investments pay off in the long run. Indulgence gives in to the moment. That's that idea, like your kid is like flopping and floundering and just throwing a tantrum on the floor, right? And you say, fine, do whatever you want, right? Fine, you can have this snack. Fine, you can get back on Xbox. Fine, you can take my car. Whatever it may be. The indulgence is giving into the moment. Investing is seeing the long-term effects. It's seeing the long-term gains, the long-term goals. Listen to me. Investment says we're not going to do this now. And you may be upset about it, but that's all right to have big feelings about it. But it's not going to be all right to keep doing this in 15 years flopping on the floor because you don't want to get your shoes on, right? Or you don't want to get in the car. No, invest in the lives of your kids today to help shape them into the people you want them to be tomorrow. Can I also tell you something? Some of the greatest investments that have ever been made have been intentional investments. My wife, Tiffany, is one of the most intentional parents that I know. In fact, she doesn't do anything without being intentional about it. She is constantly encouraging me to be more intentional in my own parenting. But you know, this week we were talking about this. We were talking about this very thing, and she said something profound that I just kind of can't get out of my head. She said, don't think that vacations and special days at Disney are the only ways to invest in your kids. There is power in being consistent in the ordinary. There's power in being consistent in the ordinary. Let me break it down. You know, the days that you spend in the car driving your kids back and forth to their thing, whether it's soccer or band or a friend's house, or just you feel like you're Ubering your kids all over the world, that is just as important than when you are flying to that special destination. Don't give up on the everyday because you've got a dream of what you're going to do one day. Stay in the game, parents. Show up consistently. There is power in presence. Just be there. We got a new phrase in our house, in our marriage right now that Tiffany and I you can steal this one, it's free. Tiffany and I will say things like, all right, pull up a chair. And what we're saying is, you know, when one of our kids starts talking about something or they're going to do something, we'll say to the other one, hey, go pull up a chair. And what this means is that we're actually moving towards our kids. We're getting intentional with what our kids are doing. We're moving towards them. Like Noah, for example, My son Noah is he's in the drum line over at Riverview High School and loves it. And he's talking to me all about all the cadences that they're doing for marching band and what they're doing. And he said, "Hey Dad, what was your favorite cadence?" And he wanted to know, like, I can't tell the difference between cadence 1 and cadence 10, right? Like, so I just said, "You pick." Yeah, that's the one. or my daughter Grace, like, she's been babysitting and earning money, and she bought herself a Cricut machine. Now, I don't know if you know what a Cricut machine is. I didn't know what it was either, but apparently, like, it cuts things and makes stickers and all this kind of stuff. And so now I know a lot about a Cricut. Or my daughter Leah, like, in this last little bit at the end of the school year, she was coming home with all these little erasers that looked like figurines, and they were basically puzzles that you could take apart. But it was this thing that she was really into and so cool, right? Take them apart and make new ones. And I just leaned in. I pulled up a chair and moved towards them in the things that they're interested in. Can I encourage you? So don't make them move to you in order to spend time with you. Pull up a chair, move towards your kids, get intentional in your investment in them. Proverbs 22:6 says that it pays off. It says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, in the way that she should go. And even when she is old, he or she will not depart from it." What could you do this week to be intentional and invest in your kids? What about this summer? What are some things that this summer you can do? Maybe it's sitting down for dinner and around the table, and what you're going to do is you're just going to ask everybody, "Hey, what's your highs and lows from the day? Why don't you tell us what happened today that got you really excited, or what happened today that you kind of didn't really like very much?" Or maybe you're going to make every Wednesday night just ice cream night. Like, you're just gonna, after dinner, we're gonna grab some ice cream and we're just gonna scoop it out and we're just gonna sit there and make ice cream sundaes together. It can be anything, but let me remind you of this. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but it should be intentional. Now, I'm not downplaying vacations. Vacations are important. It is important to spend quality time with one another away from your situation, from your home and stress and all of work. Time away is important, but it's not a silver bullet that's going to take care of everything. Eli missed the boat with his sons on this. In fact, so much so that God ended up rebuking and removing Eli and his entire house from the honor and privilege of serving as a priest. So, in verse 22, there's a little detail that I don't want you to miss out on. In 1 Samuel 22, it says, "Now Eli, who was very old, heard about everything his sons were doing to all Israel." Eli got involved when he had to. But clearly, this was after a period of being uninvolved. Moms, dads, spiritual mothers, spiritual fathers, grandparents, this is for you. Up until this point in time, have I identified or clarified what age I'm referring to when I say kids? No. It's been intentional, because I want you to see something, that this guy, Eli, missed it. He missed it because he missed out on influencing the lives of his kids in every age. And I'm telling you this as a man who is an adult tween, right? Like, you heard of tweens, that's like, they're not little kids anymore and they're not teenagers. I'm an adult tween because I'm not middle-aged, but I'm not young. What am I? Like, what is this age that I live in, right? And I'm looking up and I'm saying, I'm not there yet. I need somebody to invest in me. I still need that, right? I'm not a young man, but I'm not middle-aged. I need somebody. And here's what I want you to write down. Engage at every age. Your kids need your involvement in your life. When my kids were little, we did everything for them. We cut their pancakes. We bathed them. We washed them. We did everything. We changed them. We got them dressed. But over the years, our responsibility towards our kids changed. But listen to me. Our roles never did, and they never will. I will always be my kid's dad. I will always be dad in their lives. Your relationship changes with your kids over time, but your role never does. Too many parents simply want to be friends with their kids, but they neglect the fact that they are still the parents of their kids. Don't do this. I'm telling you, this is a mistake. You don't want to be friends with your toddler. Like, that's just a bad friend. They're so selfish. Why would you want to be friends with your toddler? And I'm telling you this, you probably can't be friends with your teenager either. In fact, I want to parent my kids today in a way that will shape them to be people that I want to hang out with tomorrow. I know that my 3 kids, one day, they're going to be my best friends. I promise you this, that Noah and Grace and Leah will be my best friend one day. But it's not today. In fact, I regularly say in my house, you do not have to like me right now, but this is what we're doing. You don't have to like it. You don't have to be my best friend. I'm not your best friend right now. I'm your dad. See, I'm telling you this. God designed parents, designed grandparents, designed people of influence to step into the gap, to redirect when we get out of line. We need our parents in our life. And very often, we need our parents to help invest in us. And so parents, don't stop engaging at any age. Just keep pressing in. Don't stop speaking words of encouragement into your kids' lives. Don't stop offering wisdom and guidance. And don't ever stop loving your kids. 12 years ago, I lost my dad to a terminal disease. And this is a picture of my dad and I and my very young Noah. And I was 26 with 2 kids at home, and man, that was painful. Can I tell you that I thought that I had processed that grief and that pain, and I thought that I had worked through that, but the absence of my father is just as painful today as it was years ago. See, this past year, has been a challenge. You know that. It's been an incredible challenge, but it's been a challenge for me as I lead our church. And just a couple weeks ago, I was sitting in my car and my phone was sitting on the passenger seat, and I looked over at it and I thought to myself, I would do anything to be able to call my dad right now. I would do anything to be able to call him and say, Dad, you were a pastor for 25 plus years. How did you handle this? How did you handle when people were disappointed in you? How did you handle when there was crises happening outside of your church? How did you handle building a building? How did you handle? And I just wanted to talk to him. I just wanted to hear, he didn't even have to have the answers. I just wanted to hear my dad say, you know what, Peter, I am proud of you. Peter, I see what you're doing. Peter, you're doing a great job. I just wanted to hear my dad cheer me on and pour into me as an adult. And I'm telling you this, engage at every age. Don't willingly withdraw your voice from your kids' lives prematurely. It's going to happen one day. But let that be outside of your control. I was talking with one of my good friends this past week, and he said that they had just had the hardest conversation that they had ever had with their adult daughter. Out of all of the parenting years that they've ever had, this was the hardest one. It wasn't when they were toddlers. It wasn't even as a teenager. It was as an adult. They had the hardest conversation. Guys, how easy would it be to just give up your God-given role and settle for, whatever, or just settle for what could be? Parents, your kids, they might have kids, but they still need you. Certainly in different ways, and you have to navigate that. But your role remains the same, even when your responsibilities change. Your voice may change. The way that you say things may change, but your role remains the same. I'm telling you, this could be the best summer ever. And here's what we know, that purposeful parenting produces purpose-filled kids. These are kids that know that God loves them, that know that they are deeply loved by their Heavenly Father. They don't have to wonder why they're here on earth. These kids are certain of your love for them and your acceptance of them. Your children aren't going to wander far from God, trying to explore what God has called them to do with their lives, their giftings and their talents. No. Get purposeful in your parenting, and you're going to find out that you raise some extraordinarily purpose-filled kids. We often overestimate what we can do in a single day and underestimate what we can do in a lifetime. Parents, this is true for us, isn't it? Live in the moment, but measure by the decade. Live in the moment. Be present. But don't be so quick to call something a failure. Don't be so quick to say, I've blown it, I just give up now. No. Your kids need you, and they need you for the duration of your life. Your influence will outlast you. This summer can be the best summer ever as you and I get intentional and parent on purpose. Now, I know you're gonna be creative with this, but here's just a couple ideas. What if this week you sat down as a family and you set some family goals for the summer? You said, hey, what are some things that you want to do? We did this 2 years ago as a family, and I was surprised at how easy some of these things were that my kids came up with, that they wanted to do, they wanted to accomplish together. Come up with a list of things that you're gonna do as a family to build memories and invest in one another. You know what else is super easy? Jump over to the YouVersion Bible app. There's some family plans that you can get involved in and participate in. If you want to lead your family and seek God with them, jump into something just like this. Commit as a family to be at church. Like if you're here in town and we've got an in-person service, be there. If you're here in town and we're streaming online, be there. Get your kids to Hope City. Or what about this one? I know this may sound crazy simple, but imagine with me the impact that this could have on your family if you just committed to pray for your kids daily. Too often we overlook the power of prayer until we're desperate for the need of prayer in our life, right? Pray for your kids. Pray for your kids' next school year. Pray for your kids' friends. Pray for your kids' maturity, for their hearts, right? Imagine what would happen if we as a church were convinced that we could have the best summer ever, that we could influence and band together to help pour into this next generation, that we would truly be for the next generation. I'm convinced that we would see an entire generation of kids that would know Jesus, know that the local church loves them, and that they would raise a generation to do the same. Guys, I'm cheering you on. And I believe as parents, as grandparents, as spiritual parents, that this can be our best summer ever.